the Five Eyes. Since the Second World War, an effort was made by members of the Allies as well as the Commonwealth powers under the British government, and remember, Australia, New Zealand, Canada still come under British dominion. Their head of state is currently King Charles. And the Americans got together and created an intelligence sharing mechanism. Today, some 70, 80 years later, since the Atlantic Charter was signed and the motions were put into place for this intelligence sharing, 21 intelligence agencies from these 5 countries, the US, UK, Canada, Australia and New Zealand, have come together to create the largest intelligence sharing web in the world. It spent many decades focusing on the Cold War in the Soviet Union, and I'm assuming has since devoted time over the past 20 years on focusing on terrorism and other important challenges. The Americans, we know for sure, spy on everyone. WikiLeaks at least told us that the Americans even spy on their NATO allies. So today, we are being told vigorously by Justin Trudeau and being added to now by the American ambassador in Canada, that these 5 countries feel or are convinced or have seen proofs through spying operations they've been conducting potentially on Indian subjects, maybe even on Indian diplomats. We don't know because we haven't seen it in the public domain. But they're claiming that they have certain bits of intelligence. They're trying to put India on trial. What does that mean? The Canadians under Trudeau want India to go to the world as a rising power and be considered a rogue state, roughly akin to how the Chinese operate, roughly akin to maybe how the Saudis operate, or how the Israelis operate, like Mossad has for a long period of time. Why are they doing it? Why is Justin Trudeau particularly doing it? The reasoning comes from what is obviously a flawed logic. And the flawed logic, Justin Trudeau is not the only victim of it, ironically victim and perpetrator of it. Let me give you an example of what this flawed logic is. Here is an article from the New York Times. Can I just put my touchscreen on air, please? And I'll just run you through a few examples before I open this up to my guests. So here's an article from the New York Times. Okay, what does the headline say? The headline says, militants kill 2 policemen in Kashmir as violence escalates. Okay, the key word there being militants. Okay, Samir Yasir has written this post, and militants fired on a police bus in the Indian region of Kashmir on Monday, killing at least 2 officers and wounding more than a dozen. Just 3 days after an attack left 2 policemen dead. Okay, so the key word being militants. So as far as the New York Times is concerned, and I've raised this matter for the past several years, they say it's all militants. If there are terrorism operating on Indian soil, it's militants. This is the same New York Times showing you photographs of 9/11. That's a terrorist attack. Okay, so in Kashmir, it is militants. If it happens on American soil, it's a terror attack. Now, it is the basis of this that we are here today. So the question I'm trying to ask is a very simple question. It's very straightforward. Only 2 things can be true. Either the US, Canada, UK, Aussie, New Zealander, 21 intelligence agencies, from signals intelligence to human intelligence, defense intelligence agencies, that they are very competent, They are so competent, in fact, that they spy on their own allies, they spy on friendly countries, and they have great detail on the goings on in the world, good, bad, and ugly. Or they are clueless. If they are clueless, then they are incredible, don't have credibility. If they are very reliable and completely clued in and not suffering from the blinded checkers of the New York Times, who can't tell the difference between a militant and a terrorist, and where is a terrorist and where is a militant, because it's duplicity. So if they are clued in, that means they know exactly who is operating out of London, which is the home of MI5, MI6. They know exactly who's operating out of Canada. They know exactly who's operating in Australia, in which Gurdwara. They know exactly who is targeting which consulate of India in the city of San Francisco. And they have full details of the criminal records, of the murders, the terror financing, decades of rap sheets, and they are clued in. So the two things can happen. Either they are clueless, in which anything they say is completely incredulous, or they are absolutely clued in, so they know how the Pakistanis operate, they know the lobbying groups from the ISI, they know how the funding is done, they know who these people are, what they are up to, why they conduct the referendum, where they do their training, how many of them went to Pakistan for arms training. They know this, and they've known this since the 1980s, because you note this 9/11 until September 11, 2001, the worst terror attack on the face of the planet took place on an Air India flight that was blown up by terrorists operating out of Canada. And I mentioned this a couple of days ago. I just want you to highlight this here. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the Canadian inquiry report into the blast. And it specifically deals with the issue of intelligence. Intelligence before and after. Here is the intelligence before. So believe it or not, 3 weeks prior to the bombing of Air India Flight 182, two CSIS, that's Canadian Intelligence Surveillance, followed Talvinder Singh Parmar and Inderjeet Singh Rayat, the two principal accused of the bombings, and a third unidentified person into the woods near Duncan, British Columbia, where they heard a large explosion. This is the Canadian inquiry report just done by Justice John Major. So let me to underscore the point. Canadian intelligence was following Parmar and Rayat while they were doing a trial run of the bombing in a wooded area. Two of their operatives were observing them do this. After they did a trial run of the bombing, they let them carry on. So much so that when the inquiry was conducted 30 years later, it was a major line of investigation even today. Okay? So that means they knew. And either they were incompetent, they were just fools, bumbling idiots, or they chose to do nothing. I leave it to your best guess. Now, I want you to think about it, because it's a very deeply sensitive matter. And the reason it's a deeply sensitive matter, ladies and gentlemen, because in any country that has to believe in law and order, without law there is no civilization. Extrajudicial killings anywhere, on any count, on any pretext, are a slippery slope. Because by the very definition of extrajudicial killings means that a person has not had the right to defend themselves in a court of law under clearly defined practices and precedents. A person has been pronounced guilty before that fair right has been given to them, and it's a slippery slope. That slippery slope, of course, doesn't prevent, have a look at this. Qasim Soleimani. On Thursday night, the Pentagon announced the United States killed Major General Qasim Soleimani, the head of Iran's paramilitary forces, in an airstrike in Iraq. So Iraq is a sovereign country, of course. The Iranians are a sovereign country, and they knocked off somebody in an airstrike. There was a reason that the Americans violated Pakistani sovereignty without telling the Pakistanis when they went to Abbottabad to get bin Laden. The reason was so insidious. And remember, Obama and Clinton were in the Situation Room in the White House watching the operation live as the SEAL teams went in. And they got rid of Osama, then took his body out of Pakistan. The reason they didn't tell the Pakistanis, the reason they actually had to not just phone up the Pakistanis and say, can you send your chaps over to arrest this man and extradite him to the US, please, is because the Pakistanis were hosting Osama. If they had told the Pakistanis that we are coming, they would have moved him. They would have safeguarded him. They would have protected him, let alone failed to arrest him. Similar, and I don't know what my PCR team is doing. Let them just get my full screen here, please. I don't know why they're confused about it. Okay, there we go. This is 1960. The chief architect of the Holocaust, Adolf Eichmann, the Israeli team went in, they kidnapped him, brought him back, and put him on trial. You can Google who Adolf Eichmann was and what all he did. That's a photograph taken by the Israeli police in 1960. Here's an operation conducted by the SAS, 1988, open operation, nothing subtle about it, nothing covert about it, in your face, published details. It's called Operation Flavius, that happened in Gibraltar when they took out IRA terrorists who they suspected were planning a bombing in Gibraltar. So, what does this question boil down to? It boils down to the simple fact that when we here in India are pointing out people with massive rap sheets of murder, assassination, terrorist financing, funding, there are people in the Canadian establishment who consider them friends and political asylum seekers, not as terrorists, not as militants. They consider them as people who should be welcome to flourish in Canada. And when we say that these people are terrorists and have done nasty things, they do absolutely nothing. And if the Five Eyes intelligence network is as competent as one assumes it will be, should be, they know exactly what these people are, what they've done, what heinous things they've done, which means that they either choose not to act or, even worse, safeguard these people for intents and purposes better known to themselves. So now let's be clear as I open up this conversation. As a country that is built on our own charter of fundamental rights and a constitutional democracy, we have to be very clear, both within India, in encounters and these kind of things that happen, or random shootings that take place, and even more so, obviously, without India, outside India. Extrajudicial killings are a no-no. It doesn't make a difference what the Americans did, it doesn't make a difference what the Israelis did, what the British did, what everybody else did, except for you. You have to find a different way. But to call out the hypocrisy of these intelligence agencies that are claiming credible evidence, I want to know why are they not out revealing their evidence on all the people who they know are up to no good, are up to murder, bombing, assassination, killing. They were watching them as they did the trial run for the Emperor Kanishka bombing, and they let them do it. And that's the hard truth. There is blood on the hands of 329 people, including 268 Canadians, on these intelligence agencies, for which a Canadian Prime Minister had to come out and apologize. Where is that proof? Let me open up this conversation to the guests joining us on the broadcast. RVS Mani is with us. Colonel Sanjeet Sirohi is with us. Colonel J.S. Sodhi is with us on the broadcast as well. Mr. Mani, now I am assuming, sir, that the world's largest collective intelligence gathering network constituting of 21 defense, signals and human intelligence agencies know full well what Inderjeet Parmar, what Pannu, what Nijjar, what Rayat, what Bains, Beg, all these guys were up to. They know exactly what they're doing, who's funding them, where they go for training, where they get supplied, where they get doctrinated, in which Gurdwara what is operating. They know everything. Where is that evidence?
It is certainly, basically, let me put it like the very fundamental certain issue, you already flagged it, you already answered it. Even the Five Eyes, it is supposedly a very facile coordination or a cooperative mechanism. Even intelligence sharing, when it doesn't suit sharing with the neighboring country, they do not, or a member country of the five, they also withhold the intelligence. That is one part of the story. That is the very story of intelligence. Number one. Number two is the intelligence sharing, what we are talking about, actionable intelligence sharing, everything. If the Five Eyes were so effective, it is just not 9/11 which happened. It has happened in 1993 also Times Square was bombed. Were they not intelligence? Were the intelligence? In fact, that was more robust and they were supposed to be very superior class of intelligence during vis-a-vis the other countries. I'm saying within quotes, vis-a-vis our intelligence or third world intelligence or other. That means either it's a case of they are bluffing their way. If not, it is conveniently used or conveniently shared, and that is not a very cohesive mechanism. Thirdly, even if it is shared, the political leadership, I have my suspicions whether having shared the intelligence, the political leadership developed a sort of a cold feet against acting upon.
Okay, so let me rephrase the question, Mr. Mani. Okay, as you would recall, after 26/11, we provided dossier after dossier after dossier of intelligence, signals intelligence, confessional intelligence, testimonial intelligence, the GPS coordinates, everything, the GPS machinery, the Kalashnikovs, the bullets, the bombs, even the cashew nuts that came from Pakistan. We provided dossier after dossier.
Medicines also.
So we provided all these dossiers of all this evidence. I am assuming the Pakistanis didn't need the dossiers because they knew exactly where these people came from, but they chose not to act. So I am going to draw an assumption, sir, and correct me if I am wrong, that if somebody attacks the San Francisco consulate, if somebody attacks the Indian High Commission in London, that these intelligence agencies are competent enough that this is happening in full public view, who these people are, what they are about, who's funding them, who's masterminding them, but they choose not to act. If they are so competent on other matters, I am assuming they are equally competent on this matter, which means they choose not to act.
That's what I said, the political will to act, because you see, what we gave to Pakistan is all irrefutable evidences. I have myself been at the help of the affair sharing these evidences. They are irrefutable. There not a single challenge has come from the Pakistani side or anywhere in the world. In fact, NYPD of New York had also contributed to our adding up the institute about the American citizens. So all the irrefutable evidences, and that is how the David Hadley and the David Coleman Hadley and the other the Dawood Rana, all they came to public light.
Okay.
So this type of so they are irrefutable evidence. But here also in San Francisco or a London or Australian High Commission office or etc., it is not any rocket science for them to gather at the investigation agencies. In addition to that, NIA itself.
So they choose not to do it, and the reason they choose not to do it, sir, is because in their calculation and in their mindset, no different from the New York Times, there are good terrorists and there are bad terrorists. As long as you're attacking India, you're trying to destabilize India, you're a good terrorist. If you're attacking them, you're a bad terrorist. And
Perfectly
just like
right.
the Pakistanis made the same mistake, if you nurture them in your own backyard, eventually they come, fly from Germany, enroll into a US flight school under US intelligence surveillance. They complete flight training, then they get on board an aircraft and they kill
Crash into
hundreds
a
of
World
people.
Trade Center.
Okay?
Cra-
So this is the problem that happens when you start differentiating between good terrorists and bad terrorists. Let me get Colonel Siroi into this conversation. Colonel Siroi, I just wanted to just touch base on this report once again, if you'll allow me. This is page 39, volume 2, point of reference 1.4 of the Canadian inquiry into the Kanishka bombings, which I've just read out, that the Canadian intelligence surveillance, physical human surveillance, was happening of the two principal accused, Talvinder Singh Parmar and Inderjeet Singh Rayat, who went to a woods near Duncan, British Columbia, where they heard a large explosion. Parmar and Rayat were allowed to continue on their way, and the third person was never identified. 30 years later, this continues to be a major line of investigation. So, Colonel Siroi, what was going on? They knew what was happening. They were watching a live demonstration of a bombing. Why did Canadian intelligence not act?
Rishabh, you have raised a very, very pertinent point, and I think we have to discuss it in more detail. Now, whether their intelligence agencies are, we take them, they are credible or they are just wasting their time. But what you have just pointed out, the Canadian intelligence agencies were fully aware of what was happening in the woods. And they were fully aware that this something is going to happen. But they have taken no cognizance of this, and as a result, so many people, they lost their lives. So the point comes is, why did they speak? Well, the question is, it is not that they may not have spoken, they must have reported to people at the higher level, but somebody at higher level has not taken the action, because it cannot happen that a person on ground keeps the intelligence with him only. Because he is going to pass that information, and higher it goes up, that there is somebody at the highest level who is not taking action. And the basic reason which I can read, especially in Canada, is it is the vote bank, what they are talking about, because they don't want to antagonize a special community so that they don't lose on the election. So I think agencies are very credible, they are doing their good job of what you said, the good terrorists and bad terrorists. When it happens in Srinagar, it is they are militants, and when it happens in any of the Western countries, they are extremists. So that is the basic difference. Militant is the one who is fighting for a cause.
Colonel Siroi, would it be reasonable conjecture to conclude that there is enough competency between the CIA, the MI5, the MI6, who handle internal and external intelligence in the UK, that if a group of people have gone and climbed the wall of the Indian High Commission and attempted to tear down the flag, another group have earlier gone and thrown bricks through the window, which means assaulting Indian property, that these intelligence agencies either are totally incompetent, they are completely clueless who these people are, where they came from, they just disappeared into the night, or they know exactly who they are, what they are doing, who they are funding, and have identified them, but they choose to do nothing. Which is more likely, sir?
More likely is that they were fully aware of what is going to happen. They were fully aware what is happening, and they were fully aware where those miscreants have gone. The question is, these governments, only because of this one reason, that they don't want to antagonize any particular community, they are not taking any action. And I think what now NIA has started, we should have started much earlier. We should confiscate their property. They cannot become a poster boy and enjoy everything in foreign countries, and then they are speaking against the country. So I think they are fully aware.
It was a genuine surprise to me yesterday that Pannu had large acreage of properties around Mohali and other parts in Punjab. It was shocking to me, because we know Pannu is and what he's up to. Okay, so let me touch upon this. Let me get Colonel Sodhi into this. Colonel Sodhi, now 21 intelligence agencies of 5 countries working together for the past 80 years, defense intelligence, signals intelligence, human intelligence, They even work with India. Five Eyes works with India very credibly on a lot of matters. So, sir, either they are very competent and they know exactly what they're saying, and if they are very competent and know exactly what they're saying, how is it that they have no idea what Nijjar was up to, what Pannu was up to, who visited Pakistan how many times, who took militant training, who took to arms training, who gets funded by whom? I'm assuming they know exactly what is happening and they know exactly who these people are.
Jai Hind, Rishabh. It's my honor to be on a news channel and a privilege to be with the esteemed co-panelist. The Five Eyes Alliance was unofficially formed in February 1941, few months before USA joined the World War II in December 1941. And it was officially formed in 1946 after the famous speech of Winston Churchill, which is called as the Iron Curtain speech on 5th August 1946. Now, this Five Eyes has got a good brand name in the world as it is known as a comprehensive and a credible intelligence sharing organization. But in the case of the Canadian allegations on India, the Five Eyes are totally clueless and confused. This is because USA is finding itself in a catch-22 situation because it has to support Canada in whatever Canada says against anyone, be it India. The reason for this is, Rishabh, that on the southern border of USA is Mexico, which is already tilted towards Russia and China. For the Independence Day on 27 September, Mexico has invited the army contingent of Russian army and Chinese army, but not of the American army. Now on its northern borders, Canada is slowly tilting towards China. There are big allegations of Chinese money involved in the funding of the
Okay. Before we go out to China and other things, Colonel, just let me bring you back. So let me just put a straightforward question. Okay, here is what we know about this fellow Nijjar who was killed. Okay, he fled to Canada on a forged passport. He travelled to Pakistan for arms and explosive trainings. He ordered killings in Punjab. He was associated with the Khalistan Commando Force. He was associated with the Khalistan Tiger Force Chief Jagtar Singh. He visited Pakistan several times. After returning to Canada, he started arranging funds for terror activities. He raised a gang in Canada with Mandeep Singh Dhaliwal, Sarbjit Singh, Anupveer Singh and Darshan Singh. He arranged for their arms training in British Columbia. We even know the date on when their training happened, December 15th. In 2014, they planned to execute a terror attack on the Dera Sacha Sauda headquarters in Sirsa. They targeted DGP Mohammad Izzar Alam, Punjab-based leader Nishant Sharma and Baba Man Singh Pehowawale. He worked with the Punjab-based gangster Hardeep Singh Gill. Nijjar called for the double murder of Manohar Lal Arora and Jatanveer Singh Arora in 2020. In 2021, he ordered Arshdeep to murder the priest of the Bharsinghpura village. Now, Five Eyes knows or knew nothing about this. Is it possible?
Well, Rishabh, Five Eyes knows everything what is happening in Canada, which are anti-Indian activities. The reason that Canada has become so emboldened to put a false allegation on India is because it is enjoying covert support from both USA and China. Now, both USA and China are using the Canadian government as a platform to belittle and deride India because of India's rising stature geopolitically at the international level. Canada is the perfect nation which can do this because it has both the tacit support of USA as well as China.
Okay, I have another question, Colonel Sirohi, if you'll entertain me. In this day and age, if you and I get a Pakistani visa in our passports, how easy would it be to travel to North America, whether to the US or Canada, sir?
It should be quite difficult, but I think it has become quite easy that anybody who wants to run away from India by doing some extremist activity...
No, the reason I'm asking the question is that when this individual, Nijjar, okay, travels to Pakistan and receives training in bomb making, in commando tactics, in how to service a rifle, in how to shoot, when he receives training like this, is it possible that the Five Eyes intelligence had no idea, they simply missed it?
No, I don't agree with that. They had full idea, and in spite of knowing all this, that he had carried out training, explosive, commando training, weapon training, they must be fully aware of it, and in spite of knowing fully of this thing that he's undergone a training, they still accept it. I think this is totally wrong, and they were fully aware of it.
Okay,
So
let
we
me
cannot say
get
that they were not
RVS
aware.
Money into this. RVS Money, I've just read out the chart sheet. Okay, can we make it even more bold? Okay, can you put this photograph on our screens, please? It's right here. RVS Money. There is an individual who has gone for arms training. Okay. There is a photograph I'm showing on our screens of him standing with an automatic Kalashnikov. Okay. He has publicly called for horrible things, killings, murders. And what more smoke signals do you need for the Five Eyes intelligence to be slightly concerned and make this a person of interest? And if indeed he was a person of interest, where is that evidence? Why isn't Trudeau revealing that this Nijjar was a person of interest? We were following him. There are photographs of him with Kalashnikovs all over the place. So we were deeply concerned about this guy, and we are releasing that evidence also. Where is it?
See, that basically the grain of it is the political will, the politicians or the people at the helm of the affairs about taking action. See, it is not that the Nijjar or anybody would have, because the ISI methodology as well known even in the Indian circle, that when they take people for foreign training, they give fake papers, take them on their own board and do all those
Okay,
things.
Mr. Money, Mr. Money, I've been interviewing for a long time. I have a follow-up question. Have you received arms training in Pakistan and explosives training in Pakistan? Okay.
No.
Is it true, Mr. Money, that potentially certain foreign agencies tried to harass you, or certain intelligence agency tried to harass you during the latter part of your career? Is that true, sir, from your book?
Yes.
Is it reasonable to suspect that there would be intelligence agencies that probably have you on a file somewhere?
Certainly, both.
So you have received, have you taken any photographs carrying AK-47, sir, on your Facebook page, Instagram? There are no photographs of you with AK-47s?
I have not seen AK-47.
So it's reasonable to suspect, and you as an intelligence, as a person who's worked in internal security, would reasonably suspect that there might even be a file on you, and you have not taken explosives training in Pakistan, don't walk around carrying AK-47s. Is it reasonable to suspect that Five Eyes has a file on Nijjar?
Sir, no, it is not just a suspect. I can say with full assurance that such militant people, see, intelligence is not just to alert the other people or preventive. Intelligence is also to recruit. See, Nijjar could be an asset for them by having all this file on them. They can set him on any of the countries. Now, India is on a threshold of a juggernaut of development, economic, disruptive activities also. He can be used as a disruptive.
Okay.
So
I'm short of time. Colonel Siroi, same question to you. Is it reasonable for us to sit? We can't say for sure, but is it reasonable for us to suppose, to presume that the Five Eyes intelligence network has a file on the man who did bombing training in Pakistan and was roaming around carrying AK-47s, that there is a file on Nijjar?
Exactly. They must be having file on Nijjar. They must be having every detail about Nijjar, and they were fully aware of what he is doing and what he is going to do. So there is no question that they were not even aware of it.
So why isn't Justin Trudeau coming and saying that we have credible intelligence that this man received arms training, was perpetuating terror activities from our soil, which we were investigating, but we also want to investigate the crime of his death? Would that not be reasonable, sir? Why isn't he doing that?
No, absolutely, it is reasonable, but he is not coming out on that, because if he comes out on that, there are a number of things. Then the question will be asked that if he was aware of everything, what has he done?
Okay.
Why was he waiting that he should be killed by the, if Indian agents had killed him, then why was he waiting that he should be killed by the Indian agents?
So as things stand, and I'm out of time, as things stand, only two things could have happened. Either Five Eyes and the 21 major intelligence agencies of the world were only spying on Indian diplomats and not worried at all about those who take arms training in Pakistan and walk around with AK-47s, because it's the Indian diplomats who are, of course, the criminals and the rogue agents all over the world and not the man on your screens, or they have a file on Nijjar. And if they have a file on Nijjar, where is the file? Why is the Canadian Prime Minister not talking about the file? Why has he not come out and briefed his parliament on what this man was up to? Why is the American ambassador to Canada not talking about the file on Nijjar? Where is this file? It's a very simple question that needs to be asked and answered.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.